Welcome to the PREcast, the Presearch community podcast. Presearch is a decentralized, community-driven search engine project. Visit Presearch.org and join the search revolution. So hello and welcome everyone to the PREcast. My name is Catherine, and joining us today is Michael O'Rourke. Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
Great. Thanks. So I want to introduce you to our audience a little bit. And I want to start by saying that you are a blockchain investor, developer, and from what I gather, and by gather I mean stalked, you're specializing in iOS apps development and Solidity, so the Ethereum blockchain. And you're also an entrepreneur. You're the CEO and co-founder of POKT Network, and you're the host and organizer of the Tampa Bay Blockchain Developers Meetup. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So my stalking was successful. We're also going to talk a little bit about your project later, I hope. But my first question is, as an educator, what do you think is the best way to educate people about blockchain and cryptocurrencies? Because, you know, it's a very complex topic, so it's not that easy to understand. And also, what's the best or the easiest way to teach people about these topics, especially also maybe traditional developers who are, you know, interested in blockchain programming. Maybe they want to learn how to program Solidity. So basically, what's the best way to teach and learn blockchain in your experience?
Yeah, I would separate that question into kind of like two groups of people, right? You have developers who, you know, are understand classical development and the whole life cycle, and you have people who are kind of just curious about crypto in general who aren't developers. For the part for people who are developers, the leap isn't something too crazy, actually. We have something called object-oriented programming, and really blockchain development, at least at the Solidity level, isn't that much different, actually. The real big difference is that you're kind of writing to a global distributed database instead of one that you control or some company controls, right? So outside of that, that's kind of the big mind-blowing thing when you see new developers kind of, you know, use MetaMask or you know, use some JavaScript to connect to MetaMask, and they're like, oh wow, that I didn't need a database for that, but I authenticated someone, right? So once you get past that leap, it's really not that different, actually, and that's what kind of Ethereum did in the first place. They actually took this thing that you felt you had to be kind of like a PhD in crypto economics or mathematics to be able to contribute, you know, back in 2013, 2014 with Bitcoin on the development. Like, it is a very heady, complex thing. And what just Ethereum did generally, and what these other blockchains are doing now, because you see all these other smart contract platforms coming out now, is they're lowering that barrier of entry for developers. And for me, that's a really, really big thing. They made it, you know, much easier for people like me to be able to build interesting, useful stuff on their platforms, and to actually build, you know, decentralized applications, right? So that's the developer side. The other side, I actually studied history in school, and I find that it's really, and in college, and I find that it's really one of the best ways to get people interested and curious about crypto is kind of giving them the historical context of how this came to be, right? Because Bitcoin came out in 2009, but it's really based on research from over 40 years of cryptography and distributed systems science, right? People have put out dozens of papers that have really contributed to where, you know, to how Satoshi and how Bitcoin was put together, actually. So I like to give people the context from, you know, this guy created this thing called DigiCash in the 80s. If you know, there's a cryptographer named Ralph Merkle who created these things called Merkle trees that really all of crypto is based off of right now, and that was back in the 60s and 70s. And you know, all the algorithms that have been really battle tested for 20, 30, or 40 years helps kind of give people confidence in this kind of esoteric, abstract thing, right? And then you give people, the hard numbers of, finding, the odds of randomly picking someone's address is like finding one grain of sand in the universe, right? And literally the Milky Way, so when you put the kind of context, for people who don't really understand crypto or are new to it, it kind of helps it make the concepts a little bit more palatable for them. So that's kind of the approach that I take that I really like giving to people.
I really love that view, I have to say. That's a pretty interesting approach to like go back in history and to also show people probably that that crypto isn't just this new fad that's just here for 1 or 2 years and then it's gone again and it's just some random thing on the internet or whatever. So I think that's a great approach to things, and to show people that there's actually a lot of substance to it, and that you can really trust the cryptography behind it. So I think that's a pretty great answer. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, Satoshi really just took a couple existing technologies and put them together in a novel way. And that was it, right? I mean, these technologies were being used every day and things that we use literally in applications that we use every day. And he just took them and put them in a novel way. And that's how it was invented, right? So it's pretty awesome.
Of course. It's not always about reinventing the wheel, right? It's just about making the wheel better, right? And
exactly.
More user-friendly and more secure. And the other thing is, I think that you're absolutely right. I think that some people, and probably maybe also some young developers, are kind of a little bit scared of crypto, and they think that it's super complicated. But I like you said, I think it's actually, once you get used to it and once you get into it, I think it's actually pretty easy to learn and a pretty great experience for most people, I'd say. And a great skill to have in these times. Definitely.
Oh, absolutely. I think the scariest part is that when you deploy something, it's just, you can't change it, right? So that's kind of the biggest risk, right? And the whole industry is kind of learning together. And things are just getting more secure and easier to use over time. So, it's just getting better. We're still young. It's barely 10 years. So
absolutely. It's a very young industry. So pretty exciting anyway. Okay. So for my next question, I would like to ask you, what do you think are the best ways to advance and promote the adoption of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology? Because I think that's just so important to, to have that reach and to really get people to use crypto, just so we can move forward and really make this a huge thing for everyone around the world. To make it so that really everyone can use crypto and is willing to do so. So how can we promote crypto adoption, on like a local level? So how can people get their own communities interested in cryptocurrencies, and also be on the global level? What are your thoughts? How could we get the adoption going?
Yeah, I think on the local level for sure, just create or go to the meetups. I mean, find what you're interested in and just kind of be a leader in your community, because people will really, a lot of us in crypto are used to, especially back in 2013, 2014, are just used to being, we're just used to being on Reddit and the internet. But to be able to talk about it with people around you is really important. And I mean, to be honest, locally and globally, the best way is just to talk about it. This wave of people. I mean, I remember back in 2013, I'd be hearing Andreas Antonopoulos talking about how he was telling Bitcoin to his Uber driver, right? And the thing is people really see your excitement, your genuine excitement when you really understand it and you really kind of have gone down the deep end or the rabbit hole of crypto in general. And it kind of just shows when you just talk about it with people, right? So when you have meetups and you have new people come in, they start to see your excitement and they start to get curious. And maybe it takes them, 3, 4, 5, 10 times to really kind of take their first deep dive into it, going to the meetups or just talking to people. But eventually, people, when you see enough people excited about it, that will kind of make you curious, right? And I think just generally, like just that word of mouth, and I think just people talking about it. And what's great now is that there's less of a stigma on blockchain and crypto in general than there was, 3-4 years ago, which is great. People still don't understand it as much, but because frankly, I think a lot of us are in our own bubble here in crypto world. Like the crypto bubble is still really small, and I think it seems bigger than it really is. But I still think just talking about it to people and people just really sense and feel your excitement about it. And still on a global level, this industry is so new that it's still really hard to use crypto in really any sense of the word, right? And that's just going to take time. It's going to take people building the tools to make it easier for people to be able to use crypto. And that just takes time for people to be building that, right? But generally, just being able to talk about it, being able to be straightforward. If someone, one thing that I've definitely noticed is you definitely get a lot of dishonest people or scammers because of the industry and the money that this place attracts. It's always important to have a group of people locally that can kind of be the anti-scammer group of people who are just honest and just want to get the education out and not really necessarily selling something. So I think that's an important aspect too with the local stuff. But it's just talking about it, and eventually that network effect gets bigger and bigger. And we've seen it. Look at the industry today, right? It's gotten much bigger than it was in 2013 and 2014. So yeah, I think just talking about it is probably the best way outside of just getting the tools so that people can actually use the stuff as well.
Yeah, I have to say I agree, and it's funny. Last episode with Sasha Hodder, we actually talked about kind of a similar thing, and she told me that what she does is she tells people when she's at a restaurant or somewhere, she asks if she can pay in Bitcoin, right? Even if you can't pay in Bitcoin, probably you still ask just to get the word out and just to get people thinking, So I think just you're right. Talk about it anywhere, right? Like with anyone, with your Uber driver or your waitress or whoever, right? So yeah, I think that's very true, and I think that we all have to work together to move forward, right? So it's not when people say crypto is going nowhere, this is all just a bubble, and I'm like, well, it's on all of us to make this work and make this happen, right? Every single person, and you don't have to be a developer. You can just tell people about it, get them curious and interested, and because it's really all about the network effect, right? So, yeah,
exactly,
right. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the entrepreneurial side of things a bit. So, in your experience, what's the hardest thing about starting a crypto company, and what have you learned so far? Are there some things that you wish you'd known beforehand? And then after that, also, maybe you want to tell us a bit about the POKT Network and, hunting bananas on the blockchain Pokemon style, because I saw something about that too. So yeah, tell us a bit about your experience and then a bit about your project.
Sure. I think right now, for us, at least one of the hardest things has been kind of breaking through the noise. I feel like we're one of the few people actually building stuff, and a lot of people in the space. It's hard to get through the noise. It's hard to kind of break through and get people's attention because really, I feel like ICOs and everything have kind of put an odd, a different twist on the whole industry. And when you say, hey, you've got a white paper, or you've got this product and everything. Sometimes it's hard for people to take you seriously until they really look into what you're building, right? So that's one thing I've definitely learned is how do you communicate these things and in a way that that makes sense? Because we're building infrastructure, right? It's not something like a prediction market or land or property or something that most people can understand easily. So it's been a kind of like a doubly communication thing. So I'd say communication and just kind of getting through the noise has been one of the more difficult things. In terms of POKT Network, at its core, the protocol we're actually building our own blockchain, and what the blockchain is there for is to actually pay people for running full nodes. There's an incentivization problem with really all blockchains right now, and miners get paid for mining, but for running like a full Ethereum or Bitcoin node, you actually don't get paid for that. So really what Pocket is trying to solve is the node incentivization problem, which is allowing people to get paid for running full nodes. And the other part of that is we're building tools to be able to access those nodes, right? So you can have them running, but if people can access them, they're kind of useless. So we're kind of building the tools to do that, and that's a suite of developer tools that we've built. And we built this app called Banana Quest using our tools and using our nodes. And we felt like it was a fun way to show people how to use our tools and what are the interesting things that mobile developers could build using the blockchain. Because I think there's a gap in communication, speaking about communication, because crypto people understand the potential of crypto. But you have a bunch of mobile developers. There's over 1 million mobile developers in the world, and most of them don't do crypto. And to be able to communicate with an app that we built, hey, you might have some new revenue opportunities or some new game mechanics that you can build, some really novel things that you can build to get people to have interesting ways for people using your apps. So we built Banana Quest. It's like Pokemon Go and geocaching combined, and we're super excited. We built it at a hackathon in East Buenos Aires, actually, about a month ago, and we got some really good feedback on it, and we felt like this was a really great opportunity to kind of show the world the awesome things you can build using the Pocket Network tools and infrastructure. And we plan on releasing it. Actually, the test flight invites will be going out next week, so we're super excited about that.
Awesome. That sounds pretty awesome, I have to say. And I mean, I guess you're right about the this noise thing is really, I think that's really a problem in crypto because there's so many projects and everybody's just trying to jump on the bandwagon and really just put out a really bad white paper, in a website, and boom, there you go, ICO, but there's nothing behind it. So it's really hard to be heard as a good, solid project. And it's really, I think, hard for the average person to really, decide, okay, is this a legit project? Is it not? Is it maybe even a scam? Is there a solid project behind it and the product and the working product? So yeah, I hear you. It's hard.
Yeah, and it's been interesting too because we're building this in kind of a non-traditional place, right? Like I live in Tampa, Florida, and my co-founders live in the Dominican Republic and Colombia. So we're not in Silicon Valley, we're not in Berlin or UK or New York or anything like that. So that's kind of another hurdle that we've had to cross. But it's been great actually building it down here and kind of building the community out here as well. In fact.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think you have to also engage communities all over the world, right? Not just in Silicon Valley and, Switzerland and wherever crypto is popular anyway, but really make this an international thing, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think that's great. And I really love the idea of the Pocket Network as well. And of course, everyone, you can find all of the links and also the GitHub link in the description below. So if anyone wants to check it out, which I highly suggest, then you can just click the links in the description.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we actually have, our tools work today, right now. So if you go check our GitHub, everything for at least Ethereum right now is working, and we plan on adding more blockchains shortly. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah, that's great. You should all start hunting bananas.
Yes. coming near you.
Yeah. Let's all go banana hunting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that you're doing is you're hosting the Tampa Bay Blockchain Developers Meetup. So I would like to pick your brain on what's the atmosphere at those meetings. What are the developers working on? What are they thinking about? What are they interested in? And where do they see this space headed in the next 1 to 3 years, let's say?
Yeah. So I got into Ethereum development at the end of 2016. So kind of like shortly after the DAO hack is when I kind of got into Ethereum development, which I don't know about the timing, but that's when I got into it. And I just found myself wanting to talk about it with other people. And just, I had a ton of questions. There wasn't that much documentation back then. and just to be able to have a place where you could go and ask real, technical questions and just really talk about, smart contracts and just, interesting things to build. That's kind of why I started the Meetup. So it was interesting because at the time, at least here in Tampa, there weren't many people who really knew blockchain development at all. And the first couple meetups I did were actually kind of just, hey, come work in your project, and let's just talk about it. But the problem was that no one had any projects because no one was really working on it. So I found that the best approach at the time was to actually just hold kind of Solidity tutorials, and that's what really got people interested. Was, oh, okay, there's someone teaching me, because I had spent the hours and the days kind of banging my head against the keyboard learning some of the things, and I was able to kind of show that to the people who wanted to come, right? So that ended up being the more successful format until we actually started just having enough people who were doing it on their own, and now we have a bit of both. We do the tutorial still because there's always going to be new people wanting to come learn, in a physical space. And we also just hold the same open code, which was the original idea, which is, hey, come work in your project and let's get your development environment set up. And, hey, if you have questions on this code or anything like that, we can try to answer it, right? So that seems to be what gets people interested. A lot of people also who come seem to work for, at least here in Tampa, and it might be a function of just being in Tampa, but work for some corporate client, and they're really interested in trying to integrate the blockchain in their company, right? So there's definitely a lot of interest in Hyperledger and Corda and Ethereum here, more so than I'd even say Bitcoin for the newer people, actually, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, they are definitely learning right away that the immaturity of the tools are not there yet. And we try to, everyone kind of realizes, okay, this is kind of like a long thing. Let me learn how to build, these crypto economic systems and how I can really integrate this, learn how to integrate this into my company. Because I think people are also seeing opportunities in their own companies, because I think these companies internally are really talking about blockchain in a very kind of abstract way. It's like, hey, we're doing blockchain research. And I think a lot of people are starting to see opportunities. Oh, if I can learn this stuff, I could potentially, move up or integrate this, or really just, do something new at my company, right? So that seems to be really interesting to a lot of people. We also get the other side, which is just kind of like the startup side, which is just people, hey, I have my idea, I have a ticketing idea, I have a decentralized art idea, and I want to learn how to build it, right? So we definitely see both sides of the coin here in Tampa, and in a few years, everyone kind of, it seems like everyone's confident that the scaling solutions will have been figured out and the toolings will have gotten better. So that's why everyone understands everyone's in here early and just learning. So it's been really fun, actually. And the developers are growing and learning, and we're all kind of doing it together. So it's really fun.
Sounds like a great community.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think Tampa Bay in general is a unique place for crypto, because Florida in general isn't really a super tech forward place, right? But because Tampa Bay is so spread out, those of us who are into crypto are the ones who kind of look for it. And there's really only one place in Tampa Bay that people can go to. That's a real, legitimate, solid place that people can go to learn about this stuff. So it's been interesting. We've actually just become not just the Tampa Bay blockchain developers meetup, but just the general blockchain community here in Tampa. We work out of a place called Block Spaces. It's just become a lightning rod for all blockchain, and really, as far, several hours north and south of Tampa Bay. So it's really interesting, actually, and it's actually caused that the community to become kind of like a really strong nucleus, which you don't see in many other places, which I think helps the blockchain developers meetup and just the community here in general.
Awesome. So yeah, everyone listening from Florida, maybe you should come check it out.
Yes, please come.
Okay. Okay, so for my last question, I would like to know, what are your favorite decentralized projects? I mean, besides your own, obviously, at the moment. So what kind of projects do you like? And also, of course, I would like to know what you think about the Presearch project.
Yeah, so right now, what I'm paying attention to most in terms of the general crypto space is the research on sidechains and plasma, and just general sharding solutions. So right now for me, Archain and just Ethereum has always been really interesting to me. We originally started building our company on Ethereum, but unfortunately it wasn't really enough for what we needed. So I ended up going to build our own blockchain. But generally speaking, just the research that's happening in Ethereum and in Archain about this idea of sharding, and in Archain they're called namespaces. But I'm really, for me, that's really going to be one of the really good solutions for this, the scaling problem that every blockchain has. So I'm just really like, there's a plasma call, and frankly, a lot of it's over my head, but there's like an Ethereum researcher's plasma call on YouTube that's super interesting, that you kind of just hear the framework in which some of these researchers think about these problems, and it's just really fascinating to hear and learn from them. So yeah, in terms of that, in terms of decentralized projects, it's more of just the research of sidechains and plasma, and you have things like RSK and Bitcoin, that really are, in my opinion, can help open things up for crypto in general, for usability and just scalability in general. So I'm super, super excited about that. In terms of Presearch, I find this really interesting because back in the 90s, you had these web portals and you had these kind of curated lists, right, on Yahoo and some of these other older portals that people would kind of just put on. The Yahoos of the world would be the gatekeepers of the portals, right? And then Google came along and did this algorithmic thing and has really taken most of the market in the search and stuff, and has taken certain liberties in our data and stuff, which is funny because I've actually started using DuckDuckGo for the last 3 months actually, and it's almost good enough. It's good enough, and I really find myself rarely ever using Google now, which is great. And it's great that we have more options. And now we have Presearch, which is kind of like everything is cyclical, and now it's becoming a more curated version of search again. And I think it's not anti-algorithmic, but it's another option to this algorithmic set of choices that's almost like social media. It's like an algorithm will never show me what the people I'm following on Twitter will show me, right? And I kind of see Presearch as that kind of next step, where with search, I'll see this other set of answers that would be completely different than I would see otherwise. So for me, that's super, super interesting with this curation set and people being able to earn the pre-token and everything like that. So I'm super excited about you guys and to see what this will show for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And yeah, there's lots of exciting stuff to come. I can only say this much, but it's gonna be pretty great. You just have to be a little bit more patient. So I guess that's probably it for today, because I have no more questions so far. And I just want to say thank you so much, Michael, for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. And I know that, the crypto space is crazy busy, so thank you for taking the time.
No, thank you, Catherine, for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said before, of course, all of the links to your projects and everything and the meetup will be in the description. So thanks again, and bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
If you liked this episode, then please subscribe. And if you want to stay updated on everything Presearch, be sure to follow our social media channels. The links are in the description.